What up? How's it going?
Bunch of trades are up. Nothing with the Saints, though.
No trades. It's over. Stick a fork in them. Alvin Kamara's going to die here.
I'm sure everyone is heartbroken.
Not Alvin. He gets to eat popcorn at home.
Exactly. I know my little guy, too, is happy. He ain't going nowhere. Definitely his favorite player.
Is that who he dressed up as for Halloween?
No. But he did wear his Kamara jersey to the Saints game. Yeah, Sunday. It's so I forget like when games are even played anymore. But yeah, the last game against the Raiders, and was very happy to see a 3-touchdown performance, but doesn't have him on his fantasy team.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get into that. We're going to get into the trade deadline, a lot that happened. We're going to get into, some other stuff, right? We're going to talk about the latest on Trevor Penning, the offensive line. I'm going to try to get some energy and need to do a shot.
I feel you on that.
But yeah, and then we're going to do some film. So, all right. Whenever you're ready, Steve.
Welcome inside Black and Gold. I'm Steve Geller along with Jeff Nowak, bringing you Week 9 coverage, getting ready for Saints versus Raiders. Also, Jeff, we've got a busy trade deadline, not involving the Black and Gold, though.
Yeah, we're going to get into a lot of that on today's podcast, where we react to nothing because the Saints have done nothing. But there were a lot of trades today for an NFL trade deadline, which is usually pretty boring. But a lot went down. So we'll go through all that. There was a few trades that, the Saints might have some interest in, at least dealing with. One happened the day before the trade deadline, so we can talk about that one too. And after that, we're going to get into some kind of a look back at, some of what the offensive line has done in we're going to look at the offensive line, which has been just probably the best unit on this team the last few weeks, and also get an update on Trevor Penning. We talked to Dennis Allen yesterday, so we're going to have some from that, along with Demario Davis. And then finally, we're going to get into some film from Week 8 as we kind of get ready for the Ravens in Week 9. So it's going to be a lot of that. But Steve, what were you thinking? Did you think the Saints were going to make a trade today? I didn't think they would.
I thought there was a chance they could make a move for running back just because of the injury with Mark Ingram. I didn't think they'd be giving up very much because they don't have a lot of assets to part ways with as it is. But no surprise either way if they were to make a move or weren't going to make a move.
Yeah, I think I was pretty confident the Saints weren't going to do anything, period. But then Mark Ingram got hurt. He's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. So I think that kind of opened the door for a trade at running back. But I do think, like, to an extent, you don't want to send any more assets out. Like, I get it. Kareem Hunt was available. He didn't get traded. Jeff Wilson was another target. But if you're going to send out a 4th or 5th round pick for a guy who, is he a better option than just bringing Jordan Howard up from the practice squad? I don't know. Dwayne Washington is still there. So I like the idea of just kind of keeping the bullets in your gun and waiting for the draft season. But let's go through some of the trades that did get made. So another running back that could have been on the Saints' radar, 2 of them actually. The Bills traded for Nyheim Hines from the Colts, and they also traded Zach Moss to the Colts. So, like, they just kind of swapped backup running backs, which is like, what at that point, why? Just keep the guy you have. But yeah, I guess it made sense for the Bills, who now have Hines ketchup in their roster.
And I think Hines was somebody that the Colts, especially head coach Frank Reich, was really high on going into the season, telling fans, the press, and everything, he's someone to keep an eye on for your fantasy football rosters. And I don't really think that's translated this season.
Well, they also fired their offensive coordinator, so maybe that had something to do with it.
Yikes.
Yeah, the Colts are in bad shape. All right, keep going down the line. So obviously the Broncos traded for Jacob Martin, just an extra defensive end. And that was after trading Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins, who made a couple trades today. They also traded for Jeff Wilson to replace Chase Edmonds, who they traded to the Broncos in that move. So the Dolphins are kind of going all in. And if you're a person that thinks, oh, maybe they're going to trade for Sean Payton this offseason because they're not a fan of where things are going, I think these are moves that kind of indicate that is not, you're going to have to find someone else, because I don't think the Dolphins are going to be in that game anymore.
No, plus look at the success too. I won't say turnaround, but I guess the progression of Tua Tagovailoa this season has been pretty impressive. I know he's got weapons, obviously now, but I feel like Tua's really flourished there this year as well. So I don't know why you'd be thinking that Sean Payton would be coming in when their current head coach is doing just fine.
Yeah, I mean Mike McDaniel's been fine. He would have had to kind of, fall off, like he would have had to trip over his own feet to lose that job, which it happens, right?
Sure.
But he hasn't done that, right? There's no reason to think that they would be like disenchanted with what he has done so far, where they feel the need to part with multiple first round picks, right?
Right. He could have been like Nathaniel Hackett. Who knows?
Yeah, right. Exactly. You don't know how it's going to work with a first-time head coach, but I think all indications are that that team is very happy. So if you're the Saints and you're trying to trade Sean, you're going to look somewhere else. Couple more interesting trades. The Bears traded for Chase Claypool, which gives Justin Fields a receiver, and then they sent out a second-round pick, which was one of the picks that they got for drumroll Roquan Smith, who is now on the Ravens, just in time to show up and play the Saints.
Of
So
course.
that's going to be one of the trades this week. It wasn't technically a deadline trade, but one of the trades that the Saints are going to be interested in. Dennis Allen said he expects to see him on Monday, right? I do think to an extent the Saints got a break though, because just think of it this way: if you got a new job and had to move to a different city, would you be ready to like work 5 days later? Obviously NFL player is a little different than the average person, but there's no way that he's going to be at full speed in 5 days after getting traded. There's just no way. It's impossible.
I just think, the worst case scenario, I guess you would say, might not be, ready schematically, but I would imagine going to Baltimore, he's going to be pretty amped up and happy about his new surroundings.
Yeah, and he's still an incredible football player, and he's gonna make
Absolutely. Right.
plays. But I think it's gonna be a situation where his role is limited because he doesn't know all the schemes yet. So he probably will be a rundowns type linebacker, at least to start. And if he is in there on passing downs, it'll be a situation where maybe you go at him in coverage. Like he might not understand all the concepts that the Ravens run yet, and so you're gonna force him. If they're putting him out there, you're gonna force him to react, right, and to see how he passes off some of these zone coverages. And so it might work out in the Saints' favor if he's not ready and you can actually take advantage of it. But one way or another, you're going to see him out there, and the Ravens got a lot better with that trade.
And what's kind of amusing though is like an area that they are still in need of addressing. They haven't touched at all in getting Lamar Jackson any more targets out there. They did not make a move for wide receiver.
No, and they're dealing with injuries, right? Gus Edwards has an injury. Mark Andrews has an injury. Rashad Bateman has an injury. I don't know if any of those guys will be out there this week. So there are times throughout the season where you just get lucky and you catch a team at the right time. And it felt like through the first 7 weeks, everyone was catching the Saints at the right time. So maybe this is a point where you kind of get some of that luck back, and the Saints are the ones that benefit from some rough injury luck while they're getting healthy. It goes in waves. So that's something to keep an eye on. The other funny part about that trade is, friend of the program, AJ Klein, is the one who got sent from the Ravens to the Broncos.
And he's like not even mentioned when people are talking about this trade. It's all about Roquan and the picks.
Sorry, I said the Broncos, the Bears. Well, yeah, because AJ Klein is probably going to get cut. He might end up on waivers. Maybe the Saints bring him back. I don't know. But yeah, he was in that deal. And then you have a few other deals. Obviously, the Eagles traded for Robert Quinn. That was the other big Bears trade. The Chiefs got Kadarius Toney. The Jets traded for James Robinson, former Jaguars running back, who he'll have a big role there because Breece Hall, the talented rookie, got hurt. He's done for the season. 49ers traded for Christian McCaffrey, who looked very good this week.
He's even throwing for touchdowns. Come on.
Yeah, if you're that's why Jeff Wilson got traded, because you have Christian McCaffrey. And Eli Mitchell was a name I thought might move. But my fantasy team is just going to have to deal with it, because even when he comes back, he's not going to be very impactful. And then the Falcons made a couple of interesting trades. They traded, right at the buzzer. I'm impressed they managed to get. They must have filed that paperwork at like 2:59 p.m.
Right.
or 3:59 p.m. for them in the East Coast, because the news of that came out at like 3:24 our time. The trade deadline was 3 p.m. So they must have been like right under the wire. But they traded for Rashad Fenton, who is he? Jaguars? No.
Was it
Chiefs?
Denver? No, Kansas City. Kansas City.
Yeah, the Falcons got Rashad Fenton, a cornerback from Kansas City. I think he'll probably have a role with AJ Terrell down. Who knows how long it'll take him to come back. And then they made another funny trade, which was they traded Calvin Ridley, who was suspended for the entire season, to the Jaguars. And the funny part is the reason he's traded for the entire, or he's suspended for the entire season is
One of the teams he bet on was the Falcons beating the Jaguars.
right.
It's so
he was so
stupid
confident that
it's
his
so
team was gonna beat the team that he's now on.
right. It's so dumb that he is suspended for the year. Honestly, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's the rules. Like, I don't think it was. I think it's stupid, but like it, if it is the rules,
Right, it
right?
goes
Like
along with the taking the helmet off. You get a flag for right. So it goes along in that area where it doesn't make. It's not a great rule that's in the NFL that they have.
well, I mean, I understand why you wouldn't want players betting on their own league, right? Like, I get it. It's not like he made that bet and shouldn't have been expected to know. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gambling on the sport you're in, it's gonna be a problem.
I guess, and you could be doing it such a smarter way. I guess you could for him as well, with especially with the ease of access for betting now.
Honestly, if he tried to do it in a more surreptitious way, he might have gotten in more trouble. No, seriously.
Well,
Because,
what if his wife is placing bets?
well, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any rules against that. But like, yeah, if he was trying to hide it and then got caught, he would probably be suspended for more than a season. The fact that he was so obvious about it honestly probably helped him, because like you weren't trying to, like, if you were actually, because it's obviously they're trying to make sure you're not doing anything nefarious and throwing
Sure.
games and stuff like that, right? It helped that he bet on his own team to win, but that was the Pete Rose defense, right? Like, and so it's, yeah. I mean, at that point, it was illegal, and that was another thing for Pete Rose. Like, he couldn't just anyway. But yeah, he's suspended for the season. And he is now on the team that he bet his team would beat. That has kept him out for the entire season. So good for you, Calvin. You're out there, and the Falcons got a couple picks back. But no one in the NFC South made deals that I would say they are indicating that they are all in this season, right?
Yeah, there was nothing really, I guess, to go all in on. Uh, like I was saying, from the Saints standpoint, running back seemed like a need. Also, I could have argued, interior on the defensive line, getting another defensive tackle, but those I know are very hard to come by and not really readily available on the market. And if they are, they're pretty pricey.
Yeah, like the Cowboys traded for Jonathan Hankins. That would have been an option.
Yeah.
Steelers traded for William Jackson, cornerback. Let's see if there's any more. I think I got pretty much all of them. Oh, the one we didn't mention, the Vikings traded for TJ Hawkinson, a tight end from a team within their own division, which good for you.
I thought it was like
Detroit.
fake Adam Schefter account at first when I read it.
Can you imagine if the Saints like traded one of their stars to the Falcons? Like, just wouldn't happen. It's bizarre. It's just not a thing.
Taysom Hill to the Falcons for draft picks.
Now, that would be fun. But yeah, I mean, so it's the NFL trade deadline. It's never as exciting as like basketball or baseball, because it's much more difficult to, like, you're not going to trade a quarterback at the deadline. You're just not going to do it, because the team that's trading for him would have to be trying to win now. And if you don't have the quarterback already, the odds that you are in a scenario where you're like, oh, we're going for it, are very slim, right? So it doesn't really work. In baseball, it's like you might have two good starters and you need a third, and so you're going all in and trading for that pitcher who's going to put you over the top. It's the football is just way more tiered in terms of importance, that it's a lot harder to do that, and so that's why you don't see trades. And traditionally the Saints have not been very active at the trade deadline. You don't see them making trades every year. You see them making trades in the offseason. And I could see, players, if they get waived, if Brandon Cooks becomes such a malcontent, he's firing off on Twitter right now, that they end up cutting him. I could see the Saints going in on waivers. They have done that in the past. That's what they did with Janoris Jenkins, right? Like, he got cut by the Giants for tweeting bad things. And they were like, yeah, you know what? We'll pay him. Like, we just don't want to trade for him. And so that's what you have. So I think that's something to watch in the next few days. If players get cut, or if players continue to get cut throughout the season, then you might see the Saints be active on waivers to add some people.
Yeah, you mentioned Cooks, and he was one for sure I thought would be on the move, especially, man, the Green Bay Packers. Poor Aaron Rodgers. Wah, wah. He gets
Oh, I feel
no.
so bad for
Me
Aaron
too. I
Rodgers.
know he seems like such a great stand-up guy, but yeah, no offensive help for him.
No, keep throwing to Romeo Dobbs. That is your purgatory for just being a bad human. But anyway, that's it. That's the trade deadline in a nutshell. Every year, people get excited about it. They want trades to happen. I think that going too aggressively at the trade deadline is a mistake. The team that I thought might make some moves was the Bucks.
Yeah.
Just a team that looks dead in the water right now. And I mean, I don't know what you do to get out of that scenario, but they don't. I mean, if I'm a Bucks fan, I'm worried that this thing is going to go completely in the tank, and not only this year, but like you are set up to be bad for a long time, right? You don't have a quarterback once Tom Brady finally does retire, which maybe he does play forever now, but I doubt he will do that with the Bucks if they are not set up to win. You have receivers that are getting older, right? They're still in their prime, but they're not young Bucks anymore. You have Leonard Fournette, who it's pretty clear that when things aren't going well, he puts on some weight. He stress eats. I don't know. But it's things, Devin White even looks bad these days. Like Devin White's getting blocked into another hemisphere by the center for the Ravens last week. So like things aren't going well in Tampa Bay these days.
Yeah, and for all the injuries they had along the offensive line, I thought maybe they might be active in that even front,
Right.
and yeah, not at all.
No, they made their bed. Everyone in the NFC South seems to be like, well, let's see what happens. Except for the Panthers, who are actively trying to lose and still finding ways to win, and then lose again. Like it's yeah. There's only one team in the NFC South that I think is actually trying to tank, and it's the Panthers, and they're still struggling to do that. So I don't
And
know.
and the Saints managed to lose to them in Carolina. Yay.
Well, I mean, they were one extra point made from being 3-0 against the division and being 3-5 overall.
Yeah, that's wild, right?
Like that's how bad the NFC South is. A team that literally can't beat anybody else is like dominating the division. Because they beat the Bucks easily. They beat the Saints easily. They had to work for it against the Falcons, but they had that game in hand.
Right.
At
They
least
just managed to find ways to lose like the Saints have
yeah.
done in the past. Right.
They did what they probably wish they had done against the Bucks and the Saints. But yeah, like they don't even have a head coach right now. Like they're not trying to make the playoffs. They're trying to get as good of a draft pick as they can so that they can entice a head coach to show up. So that's like I'm not worried about the Panthers. I'd be worried. The only team that really worries you in the NFC South is the Falcons, and even they're not making trades like they're going in. They traded for a cornerback because they needed a cornerback. But like this is a team that almost just lost to the tanking Panthers. So I don't know. Like I saw odds today. I looked this up because I was interested. The Saints are going off at plus 550 to win the NFC South right now, and like that feels like good money to me. Like obviously they have some questions to answer, but they're a half game out behind the Falcons, who they have at the first half of the tiebreaker on, and they're playing better football the last few weeks. The offense is clicking and the defense is showing signs. You're going to get guys healthy and back. It's like all they have to do is get to 8 wins, and you think you win the division. So like plus, like that's good odds. It's bet $100 to win $550.
If we can get the defense we saw last week against the Raiders, hell yeah, I'm all in on that.
Well, yeah, we're gonna go into some film, and it's like the Raiders were very, very bad. I think that is something that we should all keep in mind. Like the Saints played well. This Raiders team might not win another game. Like they're playing that badly. Or they did in that game. And it's like I could see Josh McDaniels getting fired. Like that's how bad they played and like the lack of energy they played with. But yeah, it's always interesting how the
I could
NFL
see Sean
season
Payton
goes.
in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
that could work.
It could work. It could work. But all right, that's going to wrap up that segment here on Inside Black and Gold. We're going to come back with some notes on the offensive line. Trevor Penning, his latest. We heard from Dennis Allen. We're going to get into more about Cesar Ruiz, who has been a star this season. Imagine that. Stick around. I'm going to play the commercial here. Ah, there you are. I was worried. Thought we lost you.
Had to go get some agua.
Yeah. I don't have any of that. I should. Whatever.
No bourbon yet. It's a little too early.
A little bit.
A little bit.
Although it's later than I thought it was. Like, the day got away from me really fast. Like, it's already 4 o'clock. I was like, oh, what is happening? Just want to pull up some line stats I was looking at earlier.
Oh, there was another sneaky trade at the deadline, apparently.
Was there?
Bills acquired safety Dean Marlowe from the Falcons in exchange for a 7th-round pick.
I swear, the Falcons, like, it's going to come out that they got these trades in after and they're not going to count. Like, there's no way. Like, how is this an hour late?
It must be marked on the fax machine. I don't know. I'm just assuming they still use that.
Yeah. It's going to be like a whiteout mark and they're going to be like, drawn in crayon, like 2:59 or 3:59 p.m.
I mean, it's nothing major, but it is obviously it seems a pretty past the deadline here.
Yeah, it's just funny. Okay, so this is something that keeps happening on Twitter. Is whenever N'Keal Harry is trending, it's always like Keel Harry because Twitter has not figured out how to like register an apostrophe. It's like, come on, guys, get your act together. Come on, Elon.
I thought you were going to tell me somehow N'Keal Roby Coleman was getting involved in it.
N'Keal. But yeah, it's N'Keal Harry, but he's trending as Keel Harry, which that's not his name. Hold on. Anyway, top 3 rated Saints for me week 8 against the Raiders. Who would be your guess?
Top rated Saints?
Yeah.
Alvin.
Yep, that's one of them.
Ramczyk?
Nope.
Is Ruiz?
Nope. Wow,
I figured some love along the offensive line.
Oh, wait. Actually, they were. Their own tweet is wrong. What the hell? It's so strange. Like, they tweeted it and said it was Peyton Turner. Oh, that's the offense. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, the other 2 are on defense. So it's Peyton Turner and Demario Davis are the other 2. But, yeah, Ramczyk and Ruiz up there.
Okay. Both of them, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to find. I had the stats pulled up and I can't find them now. Everyone must be loving this.
About Ruiz?
About like just the fact that we're not talking about anything and I'm literally just looking over here.
Oh, they're just hanging out with us.
Yeah. Well, like I had the stats and then I accidentally closed out of them. Let's see. That's what I want. I want pass. No, I want pass blocking. Where is it? There it is. Pass blocking, run blocking. Here we go.
Schefter says 10 trades made today, most ever at an NFL trade deadline day.
Wow. That's exciting.
I will say that's a part of social media and Twitter I do like. It just all that's when it starts all coming down on a day like today, and it's exciting.
True. I agree with you.
It's like, oh, is my team involved? You get excited.
Yep. All right, I'm going to come back with sound here.
Yeah.
It's hard to run the ball the way we've been able to run the ball unless your offensive line is playing effectively. There's a lot of elements that go into it, but I do think that our offensive line has been playing pretty well. We've done a pretty good job of run block, and we've done a pretty good job of protecting for the quarterback, and I just feel like, generally when you're in a little bit of a groove offensively, all those things kind of start up front. No different than defensively. When we get in a groove defensively, it's generally led by the way that our front plays.
The cutoff there. We're back here on Inside Black and Gold, and that was Dennis Allen talking about what has to be the most improved unit after week 8 from where it was in week 1, and that is the offensive line. Andy Dalton has not been sacked in 2 weeks. And for a group that, everyone wanted to heap dirt on Cesar Ruiz, and no one had any faith in James Hurst and all this, and Andrews Pete is Andrews Pete. He's always hurt. Well, he came back and he looked good. That has to be, when you look at a team that's struggled and is still 3-5 and has to find a way to get back to 500 and get on top of the division, it's a lot easier to do that when your offensive line is doing the job. And that's what's happened so far, and that's what's happened the last few weeks for the Saints.
Yeah, and I guess because of the position group, it doesn't get a lot of love. I think a lot of people have kind of overlooked their contributions, even though how important, obviously, the guys up front, the big uglies are up front. But yeah, that's impressive when you just said that with Andy Dalton not being sacked the last 2 weeks. Obviously not a guy that is known for mobility. He can definitely has some, I guess you could say, smoothness about him where he's able to have a little bit of escapability, but he's not someone that's going to be running around back there. And in just general, the run blocking is obviously key for springing guys like Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram, etc. And I think, I don't know if it was this week or last. I think it was this week on one of the touchdown runs. Got to give credit even to a guy like Traquan Smith, who I think helped spring a huge gain for Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, no, I mean, the run blocking, it works together, right? And I think that's what Dennis Allen was pointing to, which is like the run blocking and the pass blocking are not independent from each other, right? When you are run blocking well, it makes it easier to pass protect because you don't have, guys coming at you, right? They don't know whether you're going to pass or run because you are so effective at doing both, right? And it goes the other way as well. And, one guy who I've been trying to pump the brakes on for 2 years now. But every time I've tweeted so many reports from his teammates, from his coaches, are saying, he's one of the hardest workers on the team. He's going to get there. It's just a matter of time. It's a guy who everyone wants to complain about how he played last year. Well, the first 5 games of the season last year, he was playing at center. And that's Cesar Ruiz, who I think has been a star. He's been a Pro Bowl caliber guard through week 8 of the season. And the last few weeks, people have started to really notice that. The first 5 weeks of the season, I think the team was struggling. And so it's hard to point out anyone who's doing well on when a team is playing as badly as they were. But, he's been coming along all season. That week 1, everyone struggled. He got blown off the ball by Grady Jarrett. We all remember that. But, whether it's run blocking, whether it's pass blocking, he's been a stud. And that is the name of the game in the NFL, right? You have to get better. You have to identify what you don't do well and improve on it. And that's what he's been able to do. And it's like, so maybe next time you have a first round pick who isn't, blowing the doors off of people in year 1 or year 2, we can all say, oh, wait, there's a reason that you have coaches and there's a reason that they thought he was going to be good. And he's now reaching the potential that they saw for him back in 2020. And that's only going to mean good things for the Saints.
Yeah. And unfortunately for Ruiz, and people want to say this is an excuse sometimes, but the guy came into the league during a really awkward time in the NFL, in America, with the pandemic going on. There was just limited amount of reps, limited snaps to develop in practice. And what they were doing was more, you would hear from Sean Payton, classroom study and, certain things, just working with your position groups. But it wasn't a really full kind of training camp and really didn't get to, I guess, flourish in his progression the first 2 years in the NFL. It was just difficult. This was really his first full year of going through, an NFL preseason with the team. You got even think about, the Saints not having preseason games during the pandemic, things that would just, just things that hampered his development. And it's good to see that he's starting to flourish, come along, and just, it's a process too on the offensive line. You talk to the guys and their communication, them being able to work together. It's not just an individual, really is one unit there working together as one.
Yeah. Cesar Ruiz did not have a single OTA practice until this year, until year 3.
That's
right?
crazy, right?
One, you didn't have basically any offseason programs. You didn't have any preseason games, and he was changing positions. And he got hurt in the preseason. So I think wasn't even active for week 1 because he was still dealing with an injury. So you lost all of that prep time. You lost all of that ability to kind of figure out where you were. And I think, he was behind the 8 ball of not being as good at the guard position as he probably would want to have been before getting thrown into the fire. So that's a recipe for struggling, right? You've changed offensive line coaches since that time. So clearly you felt like the offensive line coaching was not up to snuff either. In year 2, you spend all offseason being like, man, okay, I'm going to get it at guard. I'm going to get it at guard. I'm going to get it at guard. 5 snaps into the game, you're playing center, and you're playing center for the first 5 games, right? You have a guy who's trying to find his way at guard, and suddenly he's not playing that position. And then you shift him back to guard, and he's now, back to square one and trying to remember how to do this again. Well, 3 games after that, Ryan Ramczyk goes out for the next 8 games, right? So the guy who you're trusting right next to you, who I think is a very helpful guy to have next to you, is suddenly Landon Young, a rookie, right? So the veteran on that offensive line group on the right side of the offensive line is Cesar Ruiz. So that's just a recipe for struggling. And I think we talked to Zach Streif on Sports Talk earlier this offseason, like during the offseason, and he talked about how, okay, yeah, he has taken a step forward in year 2. Whether you want to believe it or not, he has taken a step forward in year 2, and he needs to continue that. He needs to take a bigger step forward in year 3, and that's what he's done. If you look at the pressure numbers, the pressures allowed, they're remarkable. He has allowed 5 pressures this season in pass protection. 5. Calvin Throckmorton, who has played a grand total of 60 pass protection snaps, has allowed 6 pressures. Cesar has 106 more pressures without allowing. Cesar has played 166 compared to Calvin 6. I'm sorry, compared to Calvin 60, and he has fewer pressures allowed. That's how good he has been. Ryan Ramczyk, 15 pressures allowed. Now, I think that's more alarming than that might sound more alarming than it is. Keep in mind, you have James Hurst at left tackle, and you are sending help to his side frequently. So, like, you're keeping Ryan Ramczyk on an island, but those numbers aren't a mirage. That's how good he has been. And I got into it with a couple people on Twitter yesterday, and it's more about, like, I've said before on this podcast, I have one of my big pet peeves is, just calling young players busts because they're not stars in year 1 and 2. And that's what had been happening to Cesar Ruiz. And especially at offensive line, where you don't really see the development because you're watching it on TV. Unless you're studying film, you really don't know how offensive lineman A or offensive lineman B is doing because they're only showing you a good look at their set if they make a mistake, right? You don't see, like, it's not exactly dramatic television to show a perfectly set block where nothing happens, right? Like, but that's a successful play. And it's like, so if you're not watching the film, like, to pretend you have an idea whether this guy is, like, actually improving or not, you're just repeating what you're hearing. And so it gets into this echo chamber of, like, oh, this guy sucks. This guy sucks. This guy sucks. Yeah, he sucks. Get him out of there. It's like, well, why? The coaches are the ones who are telling you, like, yeah, he's improving. He's struggling, but he's improving, and we're getting there. And so what bugged me on Twitter is, like, oh, yeah, all of a sudden it's like, wow, it's remarkable. I can't believe he made this crazy turnaround. It's like, no. You think that because you've spent the last 2 years shit posting a guy, and now instead of just saying, "Oh, I guess I was wrong," you're like, "Wow, it's remarkable. I can't believe this thing happened that no one saw coming." It's like, well, if you were more reasonable about this, you would have seen it coming and you would have seen it building. But instead, you've just been talking shit to a guy who, if you saw him in person, you would ask for a selfie with. Right. Anyway, that's what bugs me. That's what bugs me more than anything else.
Well, the thing is, I mean, one, it goes along with the territory of being drafted in the first round. People expect, so much out of that. He's just going to be a stonewall right away. And we saw that this year, even with Trevor Penning in the preseason. Yes. Everyone started getting on him for some early struggles. And it's like, just like you said, right to start this, pump the brakes, hold on.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the guys are going to make mistakes. They're young players. They're inconsistent. And on the offensive line, when you're inconsistent, your quarterback gets killed. So I get it. Like, if you're a wide receiver who's struggling and you don't get separation and you just don't get the ball thrown to you and no one ever finds out about it, right? You would have to be watching the film to see a wide receiver really mess up on a route. So it's the inverse, right? So a quarterback is in the same position as a offensive lineman, but you get a better look at what the quarterback is doing every play, right? You have analysts who are breaking down what the quarterback is doing every play exhaustively. Offensive line is really difficult. It's really difficult to analyze, and I'm not that good at it. I'm just asking the players, I'm asking the coaches, and they're telling me these things, and I'm reporting them back. And then it's like, wow, I can't believe no one has been telling us about this. Like, that's what I've been doing for 2 years. Anyway.
Oh,
So,
you're such a homer, Jeff.
Right. So earlier this offseason, right, one of the things I tweeted was, Contavious Street went up to the podium. We only talked to him like once. And he was asked, who has stood out on the offensive line? And his answer, he hasn't been around for the 2 years of where everyone was saying, bench Caesar. Everyone was saying, like, people were saying that they should move James Hurst inside, start the rookie left tackle just to get Caesar off the field. That's how ridiculous people were being. And Kentavious goes up there and he's like, oh, yeah, Cesar Ruiz, 100%. He has been a star. Like, he's very difficult to get past in pass sets and run sets. He's got quick feet. He's strong. He's agile. And I tweeted that, and they were like, well, I guess now I don't trust Contavious Street. And it's like, or maybe this impartial observer is telling you something that's going to pan out, and it did. And so, like, that's my thing, and I'm getting worked up again. It just annoys me because it's like people like Andrew from the Saints Happy Hour podcast says I'm grandstanding. I was like, no, I just want you to admit that you were shitposting a guy for no reason. And
or at least acknowledge, the development of a player who might have been struggling early on in his career, but has taken these steps now that, like we've mentioned, has gone through OTAs, has had a real training camp.
Right. And it's like, but in the term turnaround, turn the corner is what bugs me, because that's not really what it is. It's not like he was this player and suddenly he's a different player. It's like, no, he's been developing and developing and developing, and then it clicked. And it went, and the curve went up as opposed to just slowly curving. It ticked up, we all went through a pandemic where we watched all these lines, and you've seen it, the parabolic increase. And so like that's what happened. And the reason you're stunned by it is that you had already decided that this guy was a bust. And so now you can't, it's like you're trying to justify that bad take by pretending that this couldn't have been seen coming. It was impossible.
Oh, just wait till he has one bad game, though. People will be jumping all over him again.
Well, that was the thing. Like, he had been playing really well, and like people had gotten so just reflexive about blaming Caesar for bad offensive line play. And it was like, I think it was like week 5. And I was like, I don't think Cesar Ruiz is the reason that they're struggling. And they're like, well, we must have been watching different games. Like, I guess so. Anyway, that was the rant that I didn't need to go on that full rant, but it's just been
Hail
annoying
Caesar.
Me. I just don't like. I hate this idea that a young player is not a star, so he's a bust.
Right.
And it's like, what are we doing here? Like, that's it. That's all. That's what I got.
I'm just saying, gear up for it again, because Penning's going to be back soon. I know we're going to be talking about that, but that's going to be another guy that people are going to they have high expectations for right away.
So I did want to get into Penning a little bit, but I did also want to share a clip of probably my favorite Cesar Ruiz rep from this last game before we do the film session. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Ooh. It goes kind of quick there, but what you can see is, so Caesar, one of the things where he's really improved this season, and it's something that the Saints do a lot of, so you have to be good at it, is being a pulling guard, right? So you got to come across, not only get there, but you have to find your block, you have to land it, and then you have to kind of get upfield and see if you can keep going. And so what he does here is he not only gets there, blows up the rusher, he finds the secondary rusher and blocks him with his back turned. And that's what keys this run. Like you can see, he just kind of like flips him off his back, and all of a sudden Taysom Hill is upfield. And it's like that's the type of confident thing that you would have never seen from him in years 1 and 2. And I think I asked Ryan about this, Ryan Ramchick about this on Monday when we talked to him, and it's the biggest difference is not his ability, his talent level, it's his confidence. It's the fact he's going out there and he knows that he's going to be the player that he knows he can be, and that's a lot bigger of a deal than most people probably realize.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes, like, does Cesar Ruiz hear all the outside noise really from the fans, all that bitching that was happening in the early goings, and how does that make him feel?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's really tough to know. I mean, I think some players do. Some players are better at blocking it out. If he has been hearing it, then that makes it even more impressive that he has been able to not let it get to him, because that would annoy me. It does annoy me, and I'm not even him.
Right, right.
Because like, and I don't know, maybe I'm more sensitive to it because I see the players working. Like, like I get to watch the practices every day where he's out there, and it's like he's not like he's just wandering around. Like you can see guys when they're not trying hard. Like it's not that hard to spot when guys are phoning it in, and that's never been the case with him. And so I'm just glad that he's finally getting the shine he's been working really hard to get. And I'd like to see some people on Twitter be like, you know what, I'm an idiot. Not, wow, what an amazing turnaround. It's like, no, you own your take. If you're literally on Twitter to have takes, own your take. I make bad takes all the time, but I'm not going to pretend I didn't have them just because the guy proved me wrong. Like I spent all offseason saying Andy Dalton didn't have what it takes to win games, and look what he's doing now. Like I'm an idiot. It's not like he's amazingly a different quarterback. I misread the situation. That's it.
No, I think we were all laughing too, just because hanging out with Bobby Hebert during training camp, and Bobby was all over Dalton from day one, and it got to the point where it's like, Bobby, I don't want to hear it anymore.
Now he looks like a genius, because that's another guy who I thought played really well yesterday or on Sunday. Okay, before we go, so one update that Dennis Allen gave us was on Trevor Penning. Here's what he had to say on that.
He's out of the boot now. He's started. With some cardio stuff and on the treadmill and things of that nature. So, yeah, he's progressing.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's what we knew in the sense that he had started out on the scooter, on that little knee scooter. We've seen him around the facility. He was walking in the boot, kind of going through meetings. He told us he was a few weeks out, and now he's on the treadmill doing weight-bearing exercises, and that's good.
Yeah, obviously out the boot, on the treadmill, able to put pressure on that foot, and there'll be, some more baby steps taking forward, coming back from the injury, and who knows, we might see him back, I don't know, in a week or two, starting with some team stuff.
Yeah, so the thing to keep in mind, he's on injured reserve. They can bring him back at any point. Like he's past that 4-week window, obviously, where they can bring him back. He went on injured reserve prior to week 1. So he's well beyond that. And so it's like you can bring him back to practice. And then past that point, you have 21 days to put him on the active roster, or he's done for the year. So it's really just a question of, okay, at what point do you think he's 21 days away? Because I do think they want to get him back in practice as early as possible prior to coming back. So even if he is a couple weeks out, I think you do want to get him on there because it's going to be a conditioning thing. That's right. For offensive linemen, getting out of the boot and doing treadmill work, that is a significant step for an offensive lineman. These are big dudes. So I'm sure, he's put on, actually, I don't even know if you put on weight when you're not playing football as an offensive lineman, because it's probably hard to maintain 300 pounds, but that's a lot of weight on your foot. That's surgically repaired foot. So, that's a good sign for him, I think.
Yeah, I don't know how much he was just chilling on the couch, playing COD, eating chips.
What else are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I hope he was. I hope he had some. I hope he enjoyed himself while he wasn't having to murder his body every day for a month.
Hopefully, watching plenty of Saints film. I'm sure he was doing that as well.
Yeah, and so that's something that I kept mentioning how we've been seeing him around the facility, and while it's not like you'd hope you would see him, you'd hope he'd be involved. I don't think that's a given either, right? Like guys can get in their own heads, they can get depressed. It's a bummer, right? You get hurt right before your rookie debut. It was the final game of the preseason where he got hurt. Like that would kind of send me teetering a bit if I had put so much energy and so much emotional investment into it. And when I talked to Landon Young about this, because he had the same injury during the Eagles game last year, so the exact same type of injury, turf toe, ligament damage, had to have surgery. And his main piece of advice was like, stay in the building, keep working, so that when you come back, it's not like you're starting from square one. It's like, you hit a pause button and now you're back. And so hopefully that's what Trevor has been able to do, because I still don't think he's going to walk into a starting job, right? Like James Hurst has been solid. So you're essentially going to be quality depth for however long it takes. And that's a good thing for the Saints, because as we've seen, guys get hurt and you want to be able to not miss a beat when those guys go out. And you don't really have a backup left tackle that you feel good about right now. So like that, just that alone will be good. And he'll be a mauler in the run game from day one. It's really going to be a pass protection question. And yeah.
And with Alvin Kamara just talking about that swagger this past couple weeks ago, Trevor Penning has that attitude when he walks into that practice field. He just he likes to stir shit up, and then that's going to be great for overall the offensive line's mentality and just challenging this defense even more.
Yeah, and I've been critical of this team and saying they don't seem to have an identity on offense. Your identity can be you're just mean and you're bullying people in the run game, and that's what they've been doing. They've been mauling people, and we're going to see a little bit of that on film. And like that's a good going from not having an identity to being the team that bullies people up front. Like that team wins. Like you want to be the bully. You don't, it's like being a finesse team has been kind of the fun thing in modern NFL. But like I would much rather be the team that other teams hate to play because they're battered and bruised at the end of it. And that's what this Saints team, I think, if they kind of reach the point that they want to on offense by the end of the year, that's going to be their identity. And getting Trevor, he's a guy who fits right in. So hopefully he can be that again.
Yeah, and I know
we
that
can just cut it there. We can just cut it there.
Okay.
Unless you had other stuff you wanted to add.
No, I was just going to say we've seen obviously the first round pick in Chris Olave having a big year, and then along with the fact of Alontae Taylor, their second round pick, showing signs of why he was a studly second round pick. You just want to see the other top selection in action just to see how great this team has actually been in the draft of recent years, especially this season.
Yeah. I mean, you look at this last draft, you didn't have a lot of picks, but I mean, it looks like you have a stud in Chris Olave and Alontae Taylor. If Trevor Penning comes back and is like a startable player, I mean, that's a huge draft. That's like 2017 caliber. And we've seen what a draft like that can do for a team.
Right.
It can buoy you for years if you do it right. And like they didn't draft that well 2018, 2019, 2020. But the last couple of years, Paulson Adebo, Pete Werner, Olave, obviously, Alontae Taylor. We haven't seen, DeMarco Jackson, those guys. But, and if Cesar Ruiz is going to continue to be that guy, the last couple of years of drafting, even though you haven't had a ton of picks, these are going to be the guys who kind of lift you through this kind of reclamation period where you're not sure who the quarterback is and all that. So that's good to see, because if they weren't, that's the thing. When you trade all your picks away, you better hit the picks you make. And it seems to be they have done that. All right. So let's end this segment. We can just end it cold like that. Right. And then we can get back into it. Do you want to lead us in to the final segment?
Sure. Back on Inside Black and Gold, Steve Geller along with Jeff Nowak, gearing you up now for some film study. One of Jeff's, I think, his best fortes. I'm always impressed with some of the stuff you present here, so I'm interested to see what you're bringing to the table today.
Oh, hold on, my
You're like, wait a minute.
Well, I have like a extension that I use to annotate stuff, but it hasn't been there. Okay, it's there now.
I'm gonna splurge next season and get you like I don't know, maybe you can with your thing like a telestrator where you can circle things and draw arrows.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to open right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I didn't really have, I've phoned it in a little bit this week. I didn't have time to like put these in any specific order, but as I went through the film, I kind of pulled out a bunch of plays that stood out to me, and so they're just going to run, and I'm just going to stop them as they happen and kind of go through why I pulled them out. And this game was a lot of fun to watch. When the offensive line is playing well, when the defensive line is playing well, when the other team really isn't doing much. Those are the games that are fun to go through the film on. And that was very much the case this game. The Saints only had 8 drives in this game. They put up 24 points and they should have been 30 at minimum.
Right.
There was only one real mistake by Andy Dalton. And when you kind of look back at the tape, it was really just a missed penalty. That play that Trayvon Merrick kind of intercepted the ball, but he was out of bounds. Well, Traquan Smith would have been there to make a play on the ball, but he got held in the Tommy Lee Lewis dead zone of calls that don't get made. So we're gonna get into a lot of that. But yeah, I mean this is the film that I was expecting to see when the season started, and so that's nice. But again, this is in no particular order. Like this is the Alvin Kamara touchdown, and I pulled it because it's like an example of the Raiders just having no idea what they were doing. And so what you'll see here is look, what is this guy doing? I initially looked at it like, oh wow, what a great gigantic hole the Saints created on this third and second and short for a touchdown. But it's like, no, the best block was thrown by the Raiders defensive tackle, Andrew Billings. Like, what is he doing?
He's auditioning for the Saints O-line here.
Right. Did he forget what team he was on? And you could say, well, maybe Andrews Pete has a handful of jersey, but like he doesn't have leverage from the position he's in. Like this guy, I think he just got excited because he finally moved somebody, and he was just trying to like pancake him. I don't know, but like that's the reason that this run was so easy. Like if he disengages from Andrews Pete, who is not in good, that's not a good block by him. This guy is right in the hole to stop Alvin Kamara, but instead he's way out of position. And, Juwan Johnson didn't block this well. It actually wasn't that well blocked of a play. Like Nick Vannett missed his block here, and that's this guy. Juwan Johnson misses his block here, and that's this guy. But because Andrew Billings got so excited about pushing Andrews Pete out of the way, this is like an easy touchdown. And it's just like that's an example of like this Raiders team is bad. And it's not about the talent level they had on it. It's about the fact that they can't do simple things at a level that you should be able to do. And that's on coaching. That's on Josh McDaniels. Like if I'm Josh McDaniels, and I've already flamed like Josh McDaniels and Dennis Allen are in very similar situations with their teams. They're in their second head coaching stint where they failed in their first one. There's a lot of questions about why these guys keep getting chances as head coaches. And like Dennis Allen won that battle in this game. Like if I'm Josh McDaniels, I'm not feeling good about the fact that I've now kind of run another team into the ground.
I just think this is, pretty amusing with the Kamara run. Like I just said, it looks like he's auditioning for Saints O-line work there on the Raiders.
Yeah. So this is another one trying to figure. Oh, okay. So yeah, a guy we talked about a lot after the game was Alontae Taylor, and he's a guy who has had a rough rookie season, right? He was dealing with an injury in training camp. He had an injury after week 2, his kind of coming out party against the Bucs. He missed 4 weeks. He came back, was immediately thrown into the fire against DeAndre Hopkins. Then had to show up and play Devontae Adams the next week, right? And anytime you're a rookie getting a starting role, you're going to get targeted. And that's what happened in this game. He was targeted 10 times by Derek Carr in this game. He allowed 4 catches. That's not an accident. Like they were going after him and he held up. And I think that's pretty impressive for a rookie.
And too, with talking with Taylor, his personality is bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah. He's as confident as it comes. And here's a good example. Like this is a play where you're very much, your goal here is to go after the rookie in coverage. So he's on the outside. You have the tight end coming off the line, and he's going to just take this like little in route. And so he's getting picked up by Alontae Taylor. And you can tell that Derek Carr is looking for that matchup because if you watch what happens, you have Devontae Adams coming in the post or the deep over, and he ends up being wide open. But Derek Carr is locked in on the tight end over the middle. And I mean, he's not wide open. You do have a safety here, but this is where I would have gone with the ball. I want to throw it to Devontae Adams. Instead, the ball comes here to the tight end, and Alontae Taylor is in perfect coverage. He should have intercepted it. He's mad at himself. Like that's the perfect example of like, okay, who is Alontae Taylor? He has this great pass breakup, and he's mad because he didn't intercept it. Right. Like that's the confidence level for a rookie in that moment. And he's also matching up with a tight end. Like that's not easy. He's not a slot cornerback, but hey, you might need one. So, when you bring Marshawn back down the road, whether, he ends up kind of working into the slot, or you do what I think would make more sense and you put Paulson Adebo in the slot and you have those guys on the outside, one way or another, I think you're benefiting from that for a team that is now kind of, in the limbo at slot corner, right? You think Chris Harris is fine. He's done it for a while and he's good at it, but you'd like an upgrade there. And I think one of those guys is going to be either Paulson Adebo or Alontae Taylor.
There is a good chance too that we get PJ Williams back, who could also play in that role as well.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of PJ in the slot, at least not this season. I thought he might profile there, but I just don't know if he's good enough in coverage. I think he's a better free safety though than what they have on the roster. This play is actually a good example of that. This is the first third down play. I think it was 3rd and 12 for the Raiders. And, it's an interesting look because you have 6 defensive backs, you have 3 linemen, you have 2 linebackers, and 8 of them are right here. They are all up there, and it's just a kind of a fire zone look where you're making them have to guess who's going to come and who's going to drop out, right? You're going to send 5, and the guy you send, I believe I think you send both these guys. I think you send Marcus May and Chris Harris, and their pressure is what allows you to kind of force this early throw. But it's also just another example of like the Raiders just failed to take advantage of this. Because I think this is a bust by the Saints. I think that's Alontae Taylor at the top. And you can see this is probably one of the few mistakes he made in this game. He jumps this route here and he leaves Mac Hollins all of this space on 3rd and 12. Like Mac Hollins, it was going to settle into that space. You can see he's slowing down and he's expecting Derek Carr to just loft it into what it's called the turkey hole. That's what Juice McAllister told me. It's the turkey hole, which is the space between the corner and the safety. And instead of that, he throws it all the way out to the 48. Like he's throwing the go. And Mac Hollins just sitting there in space, like, okay, first down, get me the ball. And Derek Carr is unable to get it to him. And part of that is because Chris Harris gets home on the rush, right? So that makes it a little more difficult because Derek Carr doesn't have the opportunity to just sit and see that Mac is settling down. So this is Chris Harris right here. And he's coming in. And so he has to throw it there. And he goes too far downfield. Justin Evans is the deep safety here. And I think that's why, like, when I say I think PJ Williams might make more sense, I don't think Justin Evans is a particularly good deep safety. I think he's better served coming downhill and making tackles. So I think that would be PJ Williams in a perfect world, where you have Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu, and Chris Harris up at the line, kind of pressuring the quarterback, and you have PJ Williams out there in space. But, I think that's just a good example of like that was right there for the taking by the Raiders, and they just were unable to take advantage. And that was kind of the story of this game.
Yeah, hopefully the Saints defense can take advantage of a Baltimore offense that has definitely not been wowing anyone this season at all either. Even in the ground game, I feel like, Lamar Jackson has his moments, but the passing game from him has surely been inconsistent.
Yeah, and they don't have their weapons are not necessarily there, right? Like Rashad Bateman's hurt. I think we mentioned that. Gus Edwards is dealing with an injury. Mark Andrews is dealing with an injury. There's a chance that none of those guys are there. So the weapons they're going to have to be thrown to are limited. Now, Saints are still going to have to contain Lamar Jackson and Devin Duvernay, who is probably the fastest guy in the NFL. So that's going to be tough. They've struggled with mobile quarterbacks in the past, and if they struggle again, it could be a long day. But I think this is a team that's kind of figuring it out a little bit in that regard. So who knows?
I've been impressed with Duvernay this year. I had to look it up. His name, I thought it sounded like a guy who's from this area, but he's not.
It does sound like a Louisiana name, doesn't it?
Yeah. Not too far, Texas.
Okay, so I put a couple of these clips in here twice, so that's why I'm kind of looking at it. That's the end zone version of that play. And I mean, you can see like Alante has this covered. Obviously they didn't have Darren Waller, so that's a factor, right? If this is Darren Waller, he might do a much better job of working back to the ball. But like you can see, he's in his hip pocket. Like there's nowhere to throw this ball, and the only reason it's going there is because you're like, okay, there's a rookie on the field, and I'm going to go after him. And Alante Taylor's not playing like a rookie. Like that should have been an interception. All right, next play. Is that Cesar Ruiz blocky with his back play? We talked about that in the last segment, so I don't need to talk about it again. So, okay, here's that. One of the things that was that I thought this game made very clear was, you can question the decision to go with Andy Dalton. You can say I'd rather see Jameis Winston in there, whatever. Andy Dalton played really well in this game, and it was an important moment for him to play really well because I think there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on that. And if he came out and laid a dud, that would have continued to happen. So the fact that he was able to go out there and have the performance that he did was big for him. And it was big for the Saints, who wanted to build some confidence going into this really tough stretch of games. But there was one play in this game that I thought that he made a glaring mistake in the sense that, what are you doing throwing this ball? And while I still think it was probably, a throw you don't make, it wasn't as bad as it looked in real time. So what you're going to have is, Traquan Smith kind of coming here and working upfield, and the corner just does not sync with him and gets beat. And the reason you're throwing this when you do is because you see the corner is beat, so you're throwing it early, but the corner just reaches out and grabs him. Right there. He just grabs his arm and pulls him back. And so that's why Trey isn't where the ball is. And that's a hold. That's a penalty. Like you can see, like Trey's like looking up, like, what do I do? And the ball comes down and Trayvon Merritt gets it. And so like, this is an example of when you're watching it on the broadcast, you're not seeing everything unless they show you that hold, which I don't know if they did because I was watching it in real time. It's a play where, what a bad decision by the quarterback to throw that ball. But in reality, it's a bad play by the refs because he wasn't able to spot that obvious hold. And so that was like the only really bad decision I thought Andy Dalton made. And it really was just give Traquan a chance to make a play because we've seen him make that catch in that spot, in that area of the field against the Bucs in the playoffs. It was a very similar play. He caught a touchdown in the AFC Championship there. So, I don't think it was as necessarily a bad decision or a bad throw. It's just bad officiating.
I was going to say too, yeah, that area seems to be a dead zone for flags, and again for the Saints in the Superdome.
Yeah, if you want to get a flag on your receiver, or if you want to get a pass interference call in the Superdome, throw it literally anywhere else. If you throw to that part of the field, you will not get a flag. It's just kind of how it works.
Yeah, and Andy was definitely impressive last game, and he needed that obviously after that 3-pick performance. And I think you broke that down too, where you could really say that just one of those interceptions was his fault.
I mean, it's the question is like always like, okay, was it a bad decision or was it not? Right? Like, because interceptions happen. If you're being aggressive and you're giving your guys a chance, you're going to throw interceptions. That's why I think the criticism of Jameis Winston throwing a lot of interceptions isn't necessarily fair, because it's like, I don't care about the number. I care about the circumstances. And over time, the number kind of outweighs it, right? When you throw 30, you don't get the benefit of the doubt that maybe your receivers are tipping the ball up in the air. But like when you're looking at an individual game and individual decisions, then you have to consider the fact that, like, okay, maybe you threw the ball right into your receiver's hands and he tipped it up in the air and the ball went to the defender, right? Like that happens.
Yeah.
Here, can you hold on? My dog is freaking out. Can you hear him?
No, I don't hear him at all, honestly.
Okay. He's driving me nuts. But like, and that's what happened on that one interception against Arizona. There was another play where you got hit, right? We talked about how good the O-line has been on that play. They allowed the quarterback to get hit and it was an interception. So like, it wasn't necessarily the decision was bad. And I think that's why when Dennis Allen comes back and says, well, it's not really his fault, blah, blah, blah. It's more about, did he make the wrong decision in that moment? Because if you're constantly making the wrong decision, then you're messing up. Like the decision to throw the ball to Marquez Callaway when he was double covered in the end zone earlier in the game. Yeah, bad decision. In this case, I'm not sure it's a bad decision, even if it is an interception, because if the ref makes the right call, and then it doesn't matter. If Traquan doesn't get fouled, he's there to at least make a play on the ball so that it's not an easy interception. So I can't criticize the decision making.
Yeah, totally. I see what you're saying there. And yeah, from me last game, Dalton seemed pretty on point with everything. I mean, the offense, the defense, everything was just really working well all together. But Andy was your perfect game manager, I would say, last game. You're muted.
I don't know what you're talking about. I've been talking this whole time. He needs to be a game manager and make the plays when they're available. And that's what he has done, and I don't know if this offense would look better with Jameis Winston in there.
Be hard to right now.
I'm sorry?
It'd be hard to right now with what you look at the numbers they're producing.
Well, yeah, if nothing else, you just don't know.
Right.
Whether it would look better. And if you don't need it to look better, right? If you are satisfied with the production you're getting, and I think the last 4 weeks you have been, then, maintaining what you have and making sure that the defense is doing its job, you kind of live with that. And that's why I understand where Dennis Allen is coming from in that regard. Oh. Okay, this is that first play again. We don't need to watch that again. Oh, so this is a interesting one. Rashid Shaheed is going to break a punt return in the near future. And I think one of the things that's holding him back right now is he's trying not to make a mistake. And I think that cost him possibly a return touchdown on this play. This is the first punt of the game, and you can see the gunner actually falls down. So, he's out of position. There is no containment on the backside if he's able to get to the edge. And you can also see, this was a very deep punt, but he effectively outkicks his coverage. You can see how much space Rashid has to operate. Now, there are a lot of defenders here. Being a kick returner is not that complicated. You have to know where your blockers are, and you have to know where the strength of the coverage is, and you just have to find a seam where you can kind of split that and get upfield. And I think if he had this back, he would be more aggressive with it. UDFA in his third career game probably doesn't want to spend too much time going laterally, right? That's what you hear. It's get upfield, get the yards. We'll worry about the big returns when they happen, but we don't need to make a bad play trying to make a big play. And so you can see right here, you have a blocker here. He's going to kind of swing around and pick up this defender. And if he gets there, you have no one to make a play, right? There's so much space. And you have, I think that's Alontae Taylor making a block here. Instead, I think the instincts of, I don't want to screw this up. I don't want to make a mistake by trying to make a big play. And so I'm going to work straight up field. Well, you can see you have no blockers and you have 5 defenders. And so that's what happens here. You were able to get positive yardage on the punt return, and that's good. That is your goal number 1. But I think 3, 4, 5 games from now, if he's still in that role and he's got a little bit more confidence and he feels a little more secure, he's going to break it around the edge, because you can see Bryce Thompson does make his block. The block is made pretty well. And the question is okay, he's facing the wrong direction right now. Can he swing around and make that block? But he does. He gets there. And so if you had just worked it a little bit more laterally and you trusted to make the block, you got one guy to beat. And that guy is being accosted by Alontae Taylor. So, I think the ability is definitely there. He has the instincts. I think he wanted to go outside. I'm interested if we're able to talk to him in the locker room this week, if he wants that one back, because I would bet that he sees this on film and he's like, man, I missed one. But either way, one way or another, it's only a matter of time. Rashid Shaheed is going to return a kick for a touchdown, and it's just going to be a question of how long it is.
Yeah, really nitpicking stuff with him. But yeah, last week too, he had that where he kind of fell to the turf in Arizona. And now this week, it looks like you pointed out here, he had a whole bunch of green ahead of him. If he could have just busted that to the outside a little more. And It'll be interesting to hear from him to see what he saw on that film and what he was thinking. I just got to imagine it's so hard to process as you're running at such a high rate, going into a return like this. But obviously, if you want this job, it's something you're going to have to do.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, he had a positive return. I think it was like an 8-yard return. So it's like you're not going to complain too much. Like you're very much nitpicking because your first priority is to make sure you catch the ball, right? Secure it. Your second priority is make sure you don't give it up,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to give up negative yards. So you want to get under it and catch it. And then you want to make sure you hold on to it. And you want to make sure you don't go backwards. So like he did all of those things, and the frustrating part is like you don't get that many opportunities in today's NFL to actually return a kick.
Right.
Like kickers are so good. They're so good at angling kicks that it's, you just kind of got to take advantage of when they're there. I think, there's only been one kick return for a touchdown this year, and it was Devin Duvernay. So, like, it doesn't happen that often. And so when you see an opportunity to get one and you don't take advantage of it, it's a bummer, but I think he's going to be fine. Here's one more play on the defensive side of the ball for a guy who I think hasn't been talked about enough. I think we did mention him on the post-game podcast, and that's Kentavious Street right here. This play is set up for a big gain by Josh Jacobs. The only reason it doesn't happen is because Kentavious Street wins clean right there before the ball is even handed off. And he is in the backfield. He reads the handoff, and he goes and gets Josh Jacobs. The Saints are outflanked on this play. If he doesn't make the tackle, if he doesn't make that tackle, Josh Jacobs is running for a while. The only guy downfield is this guy, is Tyrann Mathieu, who we've already established is not the premier tackler from the safety position. And I don't think it's even a criticism. If you give Josh Jacobs a head of steam and say, okay, Tyrann, go try to tackle him in the open field, Tyrann might not get up. Like that is a bulldozer that you were asking your 5'9" safety to go pick up. So like Kentavious Street, gold star. He didn't have a huge game. He's only in on like 25% of the snaps, but he made an impact on that drive. And so, that's really what you're hoping for from a defensive interior that has struggled.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to see the Saints run defense show up this game against one of the better backs in the NFL, at least over the last, what was it? Three games. I think he was averaging close to 150 yards a game, and just be able to put the clamps on him obviously was huge and affecting the pass game as well for the Raiders. But that kind of tackling too, seeing guys putting that effort out is something that's contagious as well.
Yeah, no. And Josh Jacobs, I think he was third in the NFL in rushing. I don't know what he is after week 8, but he was going into it. And yeah, I mean, you gotta be tough. You gotta stop the run. And that's what the Saints were able to do this week. There's one more clip here, and it's another Rashid Shaheed clip. And one of the things I said earlier in the season was when you watch Rashid run, he reminds you of Chris Olave. They have a very similar, like they just glide down the field and they just get to their spots so quickly and so efficiently that it's really difficult to stop. And it's really impressive to watch. And so you'll see that on this play. Oh, wait. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Damn. Okay. Take that back. This is the third down play where Taysom Hill gets the ball. And we talked about how the Saints hadn't been throwing to Taysom Hill. And this might be the easiest third down conversion in the history of the NFL. I mean, the easiest 3rd and 6 conversion in the history of the NFL. Because look at what happens. Like Taysom Hill is just sitting there in the slot, offset, just takes like 4 steps downfield. Oh, hey, Andy. Hey, guys, I'm wide open. Throw me the ball. He does. Easy pitch and catch, first down conversion. And like that's the look for Taysom in the passing game. Look for Taysom on easy completions, right? If they're ignoring him, if they are like not paying him any attention, and the Raiders ignored the middle of the field about as hard as you could in this game, give him the ball. Get him the ball in space, right? Give him a chance to make positive gains. And that's what you did here. It's what they were able to do in the red zone against the Cardinals. Against the Bengals. When did he score the touchdown? It's against the Bengals. We caught it. Whatever. It was what he was able to do on that other touchdown catch he had. And so, like, that's what I like to see in this offense a little more is like, don't just ignore Taysom in the passing game. Like, at least be aware of where he is so that if he is uncovered, you throw him the ball. Because there have been a couple times this season where it felt like he was just de-emphasized to the point that they weren't even paying attention to him. And you missed an opportunity because of it. So I'm glad they took advantage of it here because this was not a play that was drawn up to throw to Taysom Hill. This is a play that they threw to him because he was standing alone in the middle of the field. And so I want to see more of that.
Yeah, that receiving score was against Arizona.
Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. But yeah, Taysom Hill standing by himself, throwing the ball. That's all. That's all I got. That's the end of my.
Was it? You were giving me a stat about separation, and was it this game that Taysom wasn't getting separation?
I think that was it. I think that's an error on the next gen stats. He had.
It seemed pretty wild, right?
He had 0 yards of separation. Seems impossible. Because on that play alone, you think that would skew the numbers upward? Because
yeah. So I wasn't sure if it was this game or the previous game you had mentioned.
No, it was this game, and I think that was just an error because I don't think you can have 0 yards of separation. I don't think it's possible. But all right, that's the end of my film grab bag for the week.
I love it. I look forward to it.
No, it was nice to be able to point out positive things for a change.
Yes, definitely.
Let's see if I want to see if I have that Rashid Shaheed one. Because I thought I did pull. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I forgot it. Oh, you know what? Here's one more. In this, if you remember back to... Oh, wait. No, this isn't it. Oh, this is just labeled wrong. Weird.
Your assistant's fired.
Yeah, right. No, that's not it. I don't know why I have the most annoying dog in the world. He just barks at literally everything. I'm amazed you can't hear that.
That I did hear him that time.
Yeah, it's so annoying. I think it's like when I'm not talking into the mic, it's searching for sound. Oh, here it is. This is the one. So that failed end around. Now, if you remember, if you go back to the Vikings game in week 4, the Vikings ran this same play with Justin Jefferson coming around, and you have that little inside handoff, and Marcus Davenport never even got out of his stance. Like Justin Jefferson was gone, and so he was not going to let that happen on this play. And Tyrann Mathieu actually mentioned the Vikings game because it was the same scenario, and this time Marcus Davenport was not having it. Nope. Sit down, sir. Sit down. Look at how hyped. Is that Alontae Taylor coming in?
Yeah, he does a little flex.
Oh, is that Malcolm Roach? I think it's Malcolm Roach. Oh, this is Alontae Taylor doing the flex. But no, it's Malcolm Roach who's coming through hyped. And remember, this is a 4th down play. Or no, this is a 3rd down play to start the second quarter. And I think right after this was the fake punt that got stopped. So this was a big play in the game. And I think the Raiders were looking at film and they were like, "Oh, this worked. We can run this play." And Marcus said no. And he still
Angry Marcus. I like Angry Marcus.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
I was saying I like Angry Marcus.
Yeah, I agree. He still only has half a sack on the season, but it's not his fault. It was Paulson Adebo's fault for holding. Okay, Tired Eyes. Did we trade for anybody yet? The answer is no. And you're going to have to wait till the offseason for a trade because the trade deadline is passed. So they will not have a trade made. But that is the end of the Film Study Edition. If you're listening to this podcast, go check out the YouTube version if you want to actually see the plays. I try to do a good job of describing the plays, but I know obviously your eyes are helpful. So, make sure to check that out, WWL Sports. But yeah, I always have a good time doing that.
Yeah, and like I said, it's always a treat for me as well. I love the breakdown just to see it. A lot of times I don't go back and see some of these plays that you've seen before, or seen during game time, and to see them coming back on film with you really breaking it down, I think is really beneficial for me and for the fans.
Yeah, I mean the all-22 is important. Like I think what I try to instill in people is like don't ever overreact to what you see on the broadcast because they're not necessarily showing you everything happening at the same time. Like there will be times where some like they'll like the broadcasters aren't even sure what's coming up, and so they'll watch a play and then they'll get showed this replay of guys running by themselves down the field. Well, there are times where they're only open because the ball's already out, and it's like so that's a clip of a guy being by himself, and it'd be like, wow, he missed that one. I'm like, did he? So it's obviously not everyone has access to the all 22. It's kind of a pain to get to because the NFL sucks. But it's
I know you've had
worthwhile.
glowing things to say about their the way it works and how you can control the video.
Yeah. Anyway, there it is. That's it. Anything else you want to talk about before we close off?
No, just getting ready for this week of practice and definitely what this Baltimore Ravens team has in store. And man, finally not a noon game. It's been a while. Actually, not really. Thursday night football. Now we're going into Monday night football, but this one is at home at least.
We still haven't had a non-noon Sunday game.
Yeah, and I don't think
will.
I think there's one in San Francisco that's a 3:00 game.
Is it 3:25?
I believe so.
That would make sense because they usually don't play noon starts in out west. But yeah, there's no Sunday night game. It's just a lot of noon Sundays. But yeah, so and that is something to mention. So this week's practice is going to be a little different because they're a day behind. So I believe their full schedule is going to start on Thursday. Like the first injury report of the week will come out on Thursday, and then the final one of the week will come out on Saturday. So yeah,
and hopefully we see names like Limited, Michael Thomas, Limited, Marshawn Lattimore.
I'm hopeful. They've gotten like 4 extra days of rest since week 7. So like I think that's helpful. I think that's part of the reason they look so good in this game is because they finally got some time to just recover and recuperate. I don't think that's a coincidence.
And I'd mentioned previously there was a lot of positives and a lot of happiness on that sideline this past game. But for me, seeing Michael Thomas there and all enjoy high-fiving his teammates, really looking like a guy who wants to be there. I know a lot of folks have been critical about Michael Thomas not wanting to be a part of this team. He looks like a guy that's ready to come back, and I'm hoping that's the case this week. It'd be huge for a Monday night football game in the Superdome.
Yeah, I think this is the week that Mike comes back. I think it is. I have a feeling. I don't know if he comes back and plays. I think this is the week that Mike gets back to practice. But if he doesn't, I never said that.
Right. We go there Thursday, and it's like not practicing. Oh, I told you guys.
Yeah, I didn't say anything. It's like those people on Twitter who were amazed at Cesar Ruiz. Anyway, all right, that's gonna wrap it up for us on this episode of Inside Black and Gold. If you haven't subscribed already, why not? Go hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, head over to your podcast app. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, go over to YouTube. Do that, that sort of thing. But as always, I appreciate everyone who watches. We did this in the middle of the day on a Tuesday, and we have 100 people in here watching. I always appreciate that. Thanks, everyone. You're great. And we'll be back at this. It'll be a little weird because the schedule is different, but our Friday episode will still be coming at you, even though it's a day earlier than usual.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see too if we hear from Andy Dalton right in the start of the week, since we know he is the dude now.
Sure, we'll hear from him at least once.
Yeah, I know it's typically been on a Friday.
Maybe it will be again.
Who knows?
All right, y'all. Thanks for listening. Peace.
Later, Saints fans.